It is Monday. RawMikeRichards.com, broadcasting live from the DKI studios in downtown Toronto, 234 King Street East, out of the Pacific Junction Hotel. Coming up today, the former CFL commissioner, Mark Cohen. Also now, as you will find out, it's been almost 3 years with the Georgian-based Spirit Company. And if you're wondering, well, which one is that one? Well, if you've been inhaling Gin Smash over the last couple of years, that'd be the one. They also have a vodka. They've got a vodka smash and, of course, gin. And it's really, really good. Rave reviews. And we'll talk about the craziness of going from the CFL. What are the cops doing here already? You see that? We just started the show. We just started the show. Been away a couple of days. And there's like an undercover cop here. Maybe we should. We're not doing booze today. That was just a little joke out there in Radio Land. It's actually just water. We're doing some funnies. That is very strange. Look at outside. I'm serious. Look at this. Okay. And they do look like undercover guys. One guy's got a hoodie. The other guy's got a t-shirt.
Mind you, it's funny though because they still use the Crown Victoria car.
Yeah,
it's unmarked, but everybody knows that's a cop car.
Yeah,
and he gets out wearing jeans and a t-shirt.
I bet Russell did something.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, the little cherub, the little angelic boy. It's probably in the sex trade. And so much more to talk about, including lots of CFL action. And as the league continues to be one of the more unpredictable leagues, you had an undefeated Calgary Stampeder team going into Saskatchewan. Now, look, if there's going to be a place where I think you could trip up as a Calgary Stampeder, even as a Calgary Stampeder fan, well, you got to think it's probably in the Flatland.
Yeah.
I mean, look.
It's happened before, right?
It has happened before. You know, they get up for it. Another sold-out Mosaic. And, of course, Chris Jones going to game plan like he always does. And the one thing that always is a constant in football, we always want to talk about the quarterbacks. You talk about quarterback versus quarterback. Sometimes you do talk about who's got the advantage on the line. Then you look at the receivers. Rarely do you start, at least commonly, starting about special teams. And I got to tell you, special teams, Dave, as you know, and in this sport is the absolute game changer. You can never win a championship when you're weak on special teams. In fact, I don't know how good you can be in football, period, if you think you can get away with being mediocre on not just the place kicking and the punting and kicking off. It's coverage. Mm-hmm. Like if you can't scheme good special teams, you're going to lose. And guess what? I think one of the biggest game changers in the Calgary-Saskatchewan game comes off of this. Once again, property of TSN and Bell Media, Inc. Here comes the punt. And it is blocked.
Samuel Guavin's got a Saskatchewan touchdown. Defense with a touchdown. Now the teams provide a touchdown.
Samuel Guavin's right here, untouched. Sticks his hands out casually. Nice little bounce, pick it up, get in the end zone, change the momentum for Saskatchewan once again.
Hurry, hurry.
And it is absolutely the game changer, Dave. And I think that the one things that special teams ultimately do for the entire team, it's that rush of adrenaline that your team just went out there and they steal 7 points before your offense even gets on the field. They go up 14-0 at that point. And again, is Calgary capable of coming back? But it is really difficult time and time again to spot a team. At one point, it was it's over 20 points.
Yeah, well, it was 24-6 at halftime, and when you look at the block punt, you look at the interception return, and all of a sudden you're backpedaling going into the second half of the game. It was a weird weekend overall. I mean, when you look at what happened overall, I was 1 for 3 because I thought the Bombers would win.
Yeah,
I thought the Lions would win. Everybody knew Edmonton would win. Yeah. I didn't think it was going to be as close as it was. And then I honestly thought Calgary was going to go down to Regina and win. I didn't think, the Rough Riders are a nice team and, they play well at home and so forth. But I thought, you know what, Calgary keeps this going and beats the Rough Riders. But
we said they're not. It's going undefeated. So many things have to go right, and almost there's a luck to it. I don't care who. I don't know how good. Even that Patriots team. I'm sure if you go back and look at the Miami Dolphins in that year, where they are the perfect season, certain things have to be in place because it is so difficult to not lose one game. Because luck in football isn't always on your side, and you kind of need that to happen. So does that change my opinion or how I feel about the Stampeders? I doubt it. I think at some point, I hate to say it, and some people don't always believe in this, losing sometimes isn't bad.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many teams have you seen in different leagues, and they roll through a regular season? Maybe they get a bye. What happens?
Bingo. They foot off the gas, and they lose that next game.
Yeah.
They're heavily favored in that game. They're home for that game. They're relaxed. They had 2 weeks off. Bad time to have a bye, by the way, right into the playoffs. I hate that portion of it. It's like that in the CFL too, right? You win the West, you win the East. You wait until week 2 of the playoffs to actually get into the game and so forth. But I don't know. I look at this, and I hate to say this, but I look at Calgary bouncing back against the Bombers this weekend. Bombers are in tough, too, because they play Calgary next week, and then they have the back-to-back against the Rough Riders for Labor Day. And Labor Day's right here. And you know what Labor Day means in the CFL? The season's officially on right now.
Yeah.
So
and
we're
then
here. We're here. We're in the wheelhouse.
And those that will parachute in from the NFL, you're going to see a little bit of that. So once again, I don't think it really changes my feelings about them winning the Grey Cup. And maybe, just maybe, when you get a little, kind of get punched in the face, not such a bad thing. Yeah. Mark Cohan, the former commissioner of the Canadian Football League, he did an outstanding job, by the way. I think I look at his tenure, what he did. He's always been a high performer, but never as good as when he joined us in studio about 3-4 years ago, I want to say. It was just when David Stern had gone on Jim Rome, and they got into this thing about controversies, about were drafts fixed in order for certain teams to do better. And I heard it that day. It made the rounds because there was a real blasting back and forth between Jim Rome and David Stern. So I figured, well, with Mark Cohan coming in studio, would he have a similar conversation with the fake Jim Rome? And by the way, it was done live. There was some scripting because we wanted to follow it. We wanted to do a good parody. So there is only one take. This is the commissioner of a professional league in North America who is literally now a part of a radio play. It was brilliant. It was so much fun. And when we come back on the other side, we'll play a little more Mark Cohan, what he's doing now with the Georgian Bay Spirit Company. But first, Mark Cohan, then commissioner of the CFL, with the fake Jim Rome. Hey, T.O., what up? What up? It is Thursday, and a great Thursday, and I will tell you why. The commissioner of the Canadian Football League has joined me here in studio, and it's certainly great to have you, Commissioner. Thanks for coming in.
Good to be here.
But I do have to ask this question. With the trade, with Ricky Ray going from Edmonton to Toronto, it's produced the usual round of speculation that maybe that trade was fixed. I know you appreciate a good conspiracy theories, just like the next guy. Did you fix that trade?
Oh, the fake Jim Rohn. I have 2 answers for that one. I'll give you an easy one. No, and I'll give you another statement. Shame on you for asking that.
I understand why you would say that to me. I also wanted to preface it by saying it respectfully. I think it's my job to ask. I think people wonder.
No, it's ridiculous, but that's okay.
I know you think it's ridiculous, but I don't think the question is ridiculous because I know people think that. I'm not saying that I do, but it's my job to ask that.
Just tell me, have you stopped cheating on your taxes?
I don't think that's fair.
Well, why is that?
I don't think that's fair. I'll tell you why, because I think there are, and I know you read emails, and I'm sure you follow things virally on Twitter. People really do think it, whether it's fair or not. You don't think the question's fair to ask if your fans think it.
People think it is because it's people like you that kind of just ask a lot of silly questions. Okay, let's get on to, okay.
Okay, I think 2 things which responds to this. Number 1, I don't think so. I do think that I am not covering myself. I don't think so by asking that question.
I won't hold it against you, but, I've been in more contentious situations, so, we should probably talk about the CFL
I don't know.
soon. So.
I think it's right up there.
Well, it's good copy, so, and sometimes cheap thrills, but, the fake Jim.
No, I did not do that for a cheap thrill.
Well, it sounds like it, so come on.
No, not at all. See, that's where you and that's our point of disconnect. Because I'm going to ask a direct question. People do wonder, but that was not a cheap thrill. I did not get a thrill out of that.
It's a cheap trick.
No, flopping is a cheap trick.
Listen, you've been successful making a career out of it, so I'm here to talk about the CFL. So
making a career out of what, though, Commissioner? See, I take great offense to that. Making a career out of what? Cheap thrills?
What offense are you taking? You're taking offense.
Look, I am now. And if you're saying I made a career out of cheap thrills, well...
fake Jim Rohn, you're just pounding, and I love it. So let's go on.
Okay, well, look, I'm running out of time, so I think we got to call this a day.
Listen, I got to go. We got some important things to talk about, like the start of the season.
All right, Commissioner. Have a nice day. That was crazy. I can't even believe we even attempted that. And now in studio, the former commissioner of the CFL and now an entrepreneur comes by him, I think, a little naturally. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Cohan.
Hey,
Mike Richards.
that was fun. I almost forgot about that.
A commissioner of a professional league going on a morning show. You'd never seen it before because you looked at it and go, I don't know about this.
Yeah,
Richards, come on, let's take and you did it. Obviously, we couldn't rehearse. There's no editing. That was on the fly. That was unbelievable.
We had a fun time. That was the beauty of the CFL is that you can go outside the box a bit more. A lot of history there, but it's all about the fans, and that's what I loved about it. So doing that type of stuff was fun for me.
Now, you've always been successful. You've done so many things in your life, and of course, following your father, who ultimately was one of those trailblazers in terms of being a businessman. But when you look back at that time with the Canadian Football League, because there's more things, and we'll get to what you're doing right now. How do you look upon it? What was it for you in that period of time? Because in your lifetime, it actually was pretty brief.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it was 8 years of my life. I'm 52 now. But it's funny, in the history of the league, I'm the third longest serving commissioner in that league.
Really?
Which is kind of crazy.
It's funny you said 8 years because it didn't feel like it. It felt like shorter. And maybe
everything was pretty smooth when he was on board. It just flowed.
I think that's the reason why I'm really surprised that it was 8.
Yeah, it was 8 years and 7 years, 10 months, something like that. I loved it. It really was an amazing time for me, an amazing experience for me, and a lot of highlights for me.
Yeah, what's the highlight? Is there a singularly best moment or favorite thing during that time for you?
There was quite a few. I mean, I think the 100th Grey Cup was an amazing celebration. Probably, and it was my decision in my mind when I decided I knew I was going to leave. It was probably the first game in Ottawa on the field, listening to the national anthem, knowing that we got the team back and we're back in Ottawa. And I think at that moment it was like, wow, we really did it.
And I think the whole country, and Dave and I can speak to this being hardcore CFL fans, that when you see the return, and of course Dave being from Winnipeg, just like seeing the Jets, emotionally it's a big deal too, and it felt that way.
Yeah, it did, and it was interesting. Post my career, I hadn't gone to a Grey Cup, the one in Winnipeg right after, because my in-laws are all American, so I never had American Thanksgiving. So it was my first American Thanksgiving in 9 years. So I was down in New York, and then I went to the Grey Cup in Toronto, and I know this is going to be edited. This show is going to be on in Calgary, and I was at that game, when Ottawa came back. So. All the Stampeder fans are going to be pissed off at me saying this, but I had a little, favoritism in my heart, based on all the work I did in getting Ottawa back at that Grey Cup. But I would say Ottawa was the highlight for me.
Let me ask you about the Ottawa for a second, just because, we are speaking to a former commissioner and so forth. We had Jerry Organ on this week, former kicker with the Rough Riders, and he said when the Rough Riders, the Red Blacks came back, it was exciting for everybody, but the alumni didn't catch on to the word red black right away. But he says now it's just normal. It just feels normal. When you first heard the Hunt group saying it's going to be red black, Mark, what do you think? What was going through your mind?
Yeah, and be honest.
This
is Jim Rohn now. Don't lie.
I remember I remember Roger Greenberg, John Ruddy, Jeff Hunt calling me and said, we decided on red black, and I said, can I say what the. That's
what I thought.
I said, "What is a red black?" I said, "This is not the All Blacks." I said,
"Yes."
In my mind, I was thinking, okay, a little bit more traditional, and I, as the commissioner, actually had the power to veto it. But as a new ownership group, they were pretty adamant about it. So I said, we'll give you 3 to 4 weeks. Go back to the table, do a whole bunch of research with fans.
Yeah.
And what came back was
all the young people love the name. And
Yeah.
that's when if we were gonna switch the tide, that was it. And you look at the stadium today, and you go to a Red Black game, it's packed with young people, and they are having fun. So based on that, they went for it.
Now, if these are in collectively Ottawa the highlight, was there a low light or a disappointment or something even now you look back upon in hindsight and go, okay, this was the thing that was the toughest, or the not maybe the lowest, but the most disappointing, or something you would have done differently? What was the hardest part of that?
So I think,
tenure?
The hardest part, because I had a good relationship with the players, was probably our final labor negotiation when we removed the salary cap. And it was, it came down to the wire. I've been a fit guy all my life. I lost like 8 or 9 pounds that over the last month. And I was like, it was stressing me out, even though at the time you couldn't show that stress to anyone. But in the end, it made some of the team stronger. And I think that will be some of the challenges moving forward for Randy as he goes into the next labor negotiations.
I thought he was an excellent choice too, by the way.
So do I. I think he's doing an awesome job. I'm actually very proud right now where the league is and where it's going, and I think it's in good hands with him.
So you leave the CFL after 8 seasons, and you kind of sit back. And I remember a lot of people saying, "Oh, he's going to go here. No, he might be part of maybe the NHLPA. He might be this, might that." What was the time process of deciding where you are? And obviously, you're doing a number of things, including Georgian Bay right now. But that thought process of where your direction is going to go, because there's still a lot of working years in all of us, including you.
Yeah,
so how tough was that?
It's really interesting. A lot of people thought, I remember the media speculating, Mark's going to take on another big role in sports.
Yes.
He's going to go back. He's a dual citizen. His wife is from New York. He's going to go back to the States. And Suzanne and I really sat down with our daughter Parker at the time, and there was a couple of things. We said, we love Canada. The country's been really good. We came back here 15 years ago after my international career in sports. The experience at the CFL was great. Why leave Canada when my personal profile is high here, and the opportunities are here? At the same time, I decided I didn't want to be a hired guy again. Like, I didn't want to go into a role and just be a hired guy. I wanted to do something that was much more entrepreneurial. So, started to explore some different things. It was interesting. My older brother, Craig, and my father were partners with Guy Liberté and Cirque du Soleil in Russia. You mentioned about my dad with McDonald's.
Okay, that I did not.
Yeah, they did that.
Honestly, I did not see that one coming.
Yeah, so for a while, right after the CFL, my brother and I were working on this new touring concept with Cirque, but in the end, it was just too costly to try and pull together. It was an interesting idea around sports. So kind of think of Tough Mudder on a touring show, but you're the participant and everyone's watching it happen. Wow. Sort of a neat concept. Sure. But as we were working on that, we realized Guy sold 90% of Cirque. New investors came in and sort of changed the culture at Cirque. And I got a few different phone calls, and I said I was really opening myself up to doing different things. Phil King, you remember Phil from TSN. Yeah. Phil was on the board of the Junos at CARIS, the Canadian Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences, and they said they were looking for a new chair. And they thought the Junos are really the Grey Cup of the music industry, and they needed some help in turning that around. So I became the chairman of the Junos about almost 3.5, 4 years ago, and have been loving that. And the Junos have been doing a great job. Canadian talent in music right now has never been higher around the world. From Bieber to Drake, which I'm going to tonight to see Drake with my daughter, 12-year-old.
Yeah, you'll fit right in.
Yeah, exactly. Take my 12-year-old daughter. It's like, why do you think I'm going to Drake? It's because my 12-year-old daughter's going, and my 17-year-old niece is. She's going.
Parker's 12.
12 now. I know.
Oh,
time flies.
Snap.
So the Junos were great. And then about 2 years ago, I was up at my friend's farm up in Creemore area, and I was drinking this Gin Smash product right here. And I said, wow, this is really delicious. And his wife said, well, you're going to meet the owner of the company. And I'm like, what do you mean? Well, it's my brother-in-law. So Gin Smash launched about 2 years ago. And I met Denny, who's the co-founder of the company. We hit it off that night. We were drinking some of his gin at the time. And I said, I love Canadian brands. Did the CFL, involved with the Juno Awards. I really know this country well. And at the time, it was only him and his partner, and his partner was working on their advertising industry, his business, and they had one office person, Michelle. And I said, I'd love to become an investor and your partner in this. And about 2 years ago, I got involved with it, and it has been an amazing run.
Well, let's talk about that when it is launched, because in here, certainly in Ontario, I've never quite seen a reaction that Gin Smash got. So we're up in actually Muskoka at some point, and we go to that LCBO, so that's the liquor store here in Ontario because it's government, that has the docks.
Yeah, in Port Carling.
Port Carling.
Evelyn is the manager.
There
She
you
can go to us.
Okay. So there's probably Ellen. I said, this might be a crazy question. She goes, are you going to ask about Gin Smash? Yeah. She goes, it's like gold bullion. You couldn't find it anywhere. It was sold out. So people started going to the LCBO, including my wife. I just can't believe she would even do this. Me, yes. Her, no. Just trying to find out by the can, which is the way they would list it in Ontario on the LCBO website, how many stores in whatever town, what they had left.
So that's what I met, Danny, right around that time when it launched.
It's crazy.
Like, this is crazy. So they couldn't keep up with demand. I became their partner. I'm the executive chair of the company now and really helping grow. It was crazy at the time. I remember, the LCBO predicted that the company would sell 15,000 cases in the year. In a half a year, we sold 60,000 cases. So times that by 24 individual cans. The next year, we grew to... Between that and then we launched Vodka Smash, and though this is just in Ontario, close to 200,000 cases. This year in Ontario, between these three, so we got our Gin Smash, our Vodka Smash, now the Cranberry Smash. We have sold already, I was just looking at the numbers this morning, just in the 7 months, 5 million cans in Ontario.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So we are the big boys now. Even though we're a small company, we only have 20 employees. We just launched in BC. We're in Manitoba now. We're in New Brunswick. But it all started with the gin. 5 years ago, Denny, it's kind of a neat story, but Denny and Tim, the co-founders of the company, they were advertising guys and they were tired of working on someone else's brand. Tim, his grandmother had this cottage in Georgian Bay, still has it for 55 years, and there's juniper all over it. And she goes, will someone make me some gin with this juniper? So Tim and Denny came up with this idea of creating this product called Georgian Bay Gin. They went to the LCBO. The LCBO loved the idea. They didn't have the liquid yet. They said, you got 6 weeks to come up with the gin. Denny and Tim created it in their kitchen.
6 weeks?
6 weeks. And the LCBO said, this is okay, but you got another 8 or 9 months until it actually goes live. So they went through 47 recipes with their wives in the kitchen, came up with Georgian Bay Gin. And that's where it all started. Georgian Bay. So the biggest spirit competition in the world right now, and Forbes just wrote about it, is in San Francisco. Blind taste testing, judges from around the world. Our gin 2 months ago just won double gold. There were about 250 gins, so one of the top gins in the world.
Tremendous and so competitive.
2 years ago, this is exciting. The only Canadian company to ever do this. Our vodka won #1 in the world. So 240 vodkas. So really, we just got on Air Canada with Georgian Bay Gin.
There you
We're
go.
in all the kegs in Ontario.
Something special
the
in the
CFL,
air.
tie it back to the CFL. People ask me, did it lead you to drinking? I don't know. To this business, but this has been really fun, and this is where I'm spending most of my time on.
We're in conversation with Mark Cohan. He is... What's the title I'm using for? Are you the...
I'm the executive chair of Georgian Bay. I'm the chairman of the Junos. My friends still call me the commish.
Yeah.
So you can say that.
That is a pretty cool title.
It's like the president. Once the president, you're always the president. And what I find interesting when it comes to spirits in the industry itself, over probably the last decade, the what was considered to be an older style cocktail culture, so think Mad Men, so back where the whiskey sours and Manhattans and all those kinds of things. Over the last 10 years, boy, has that come back with a storm. And gin is one of the front runners in that.
So it is. So it's interesting. In the UK, the gin volumes have grown immensely, like 80% up last year, starting to grow in Canada as well, and a little bit in the US. What you're seeing though with gin is because of all the botanicals that are in it, the juniper, the coriander, the flavors. Millennials like that, it's better in the cocktail culture, and that's why vodka tends to have just a smooth taste, or if it's not a good vodka, not so smooth. So people really like to use gin in the cocktail culture, and that's where we're seeing the resurgence of it, even in our cranberry. So it's interesting. So our gin smash is lemon, lime, mint, and tangerine. When we came out with the vodka smash, because it was so interesting, people like the gin smash took off, but there were so many people, you come up to us at events and they say, Oh, I had a bad experience with gin
Right. When they were
In high school.
or university. or
yeah, our
something.
university.
Yeah.
Oh, can you come out with vodka? So we came out with the vodka last year, and we took out the tangerine natural flavor and put in grapefruit. And then with the cranberry, it was amazing. So what happened with cranberry, and we've sold out of this. We're trying to keep up with demand this year just in Ontario. The LCBO said to us, guys, you don't know, there's so much competition this year. All these new flavors coming out. We need something for you guys to come up with. So Tim, Denny, and I, we work with a special natural flavoring house, and they have an office here in Toronto, but their real headquarters are in Kentucky. So road trip.
Yeah.
So within, I'd say, 6 weeks, we put a brief together to the guys down there and said, this is the flavors we want to use. Danny, Tim, and I fly down to Cincinnati, cross the border into Kentucky, totally different world there. And we sit in their innovation lab for about a day. Good thing I wasn't driving, and literally come up with the flavor for Georgian Bay cranberry.
So this is like by far your newest product.
Our newest product. It's really great. We want to keep the same flavoring, so we took the mint out. It's lemon, lime, and cranberry. Cranberry can be sometimes too sweet. That's why these products have done so well, because they're not sweet.
Right, and I think that's when the drier cooler is a more elegant, right? It's a little more grown up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the cranberry. Now we haven't put this on the packaging, but Danny, I remember in the meeting in the innovation kitchen there at our supplier, and we said, what is the great one of the botanicals we have in our gin? It's coriander. Coriander has a little bit of a spice to it. I said, let's put some natural coriander flavor in the cranberry. So that cut the sweetness of it, and it created this amazing product that people love today. So, and so next year, I think, once we get all of our production up, this could rival the original Gin Smash in volumes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a real success story. And again, trying to maybe, if not find the right trend, trying too much to not follow it, because the second guy never does as well.
Right.
Like, you've got to be first. And when you start talking
There's
about,
so many people following us now, and
Well,
you can see their numbers.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
sure.
Like, our numbers are like this, and their numbers are like this.
well,
Yeah.
Bud Light Lime comes out back whenever it did,
Yeah.
and you couldn't find that anywhere. And then the lime beer copycat
Right.
Sure.
was but they never really succeeded in having those kinds of
Capturing.
numbers.
Yeah.
But with the liquor industry, it's so finicky,
Right.
That you can be in one year and out the next. I mean, it's just the way it is. So if the product doesn't, and again, I think with its main ingredient, like anything that's food based. So if you're a steak restaurant or a meat, then you have to have the finest beef at its core.
Yes.
Has to be that. So what I think is interesting is here are these guys who come up with an idea and have 6 weeks in a kitchen trying to come up with, like, basically, I don't know, a still in the kitchen.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's legal. And so you got to sit there and make the stuff, and they hit like the greatest home run of their lives. What a great story that is.
I had the chance of meeting them, and what I was able to bring to the table was the ability to scale, the ability to take like the CFL, to take a product that has some great potential and make it better. And that's what I've been able to do with these guys and help them grow the business, which has been so much fun.
Do you have anything else on the horizon? I'm not trying to jump the
we
shark here,
do,
but I mean,
know.
is there something you might be able to hint at? Maybe is there a rum flavor coming out?
Not a rum flavor. I can't tell you what flavors
Okay.
because I know all of our competition will be listening.
Sure. Fair enough.
But we have 3 flavors that everyone in our company of our Smash products have tried.
Yeah.
So we're building our pipeline, our innovation pipeline for next year. I don't know if 3 will come out with 3, but we have the flavors. As you said, this industry can be very finicky. So we look at the Gin Smash sort of, if you think of Smirnoff Ice, when that launched in the 90s, they did 4 million cases just in Canada.
Oh my God.
Which is big monster company.
Dave and I, we got to come up with something too.
Exactly.
Maybe some sort of lima bean coolers.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm still working on it.
They'll do about a little over 1 million cases now. It went down, but their Smirnoff Ice is their core, and then they have all these different flavors. So we view the Gin Smash as sort of that's the mothership, and then we'll tweak the flavoring on it. I even drink the Gin Smash, which is amazing, and Aperol is really popular.
It is very popular.
Take our gin. Put a little bit of gin in it, take the Gin Smash, and add a little Aperol to it, and it's an amazing cocktail for the summer.
The one that I'd say for the last 4 weeks that we sort of fall in love with. So, and we did. We went out and I said, okay, support our buddy. So we go out, we get the Georgian Bay gin, and with a sort of a Tom Collins. Well, actually not Tom Collins, like an old-fashioned glass.
Right, yeah.
So tons of ice, the gin, tonic, and then fresh pink grapefruit. And it was, you would have thought that there was more to it.
Okay.
But that again, that's what I'm saying, that the core ingredient provides everything you need, all those subtleties, all those.
Well, we created for David Eisenstadt at the Keg. I remember meeting with David, and he was the CFL sponsor. So when I became involved with this, I emailed David and I said, "Hey, I'm in the booze business now. You're the biggest, you're the biggest buyer of booze in Canada. Would you try our gin and our vodka?" And we met at one of his stores, the Shore Club here in Toronto. Sat for 3 hours tasting all the products. That was a fun night. But we designed a Georgian Bay Gin Caesar that is delicious.
That's interesting.
Now,
So that was, on the winter. We now have a new product in there called the Slam Dunk. This is just in Ontario, which is both gin and vodka and a little bit of a fortified wine. But our Caesar was amazing. It was dill. It was pickles in it. It was delicious. You just don't put any spice in it because the natural flavoring of the gin comes through, and it's one of my favorite Caesars. Of course.
So people
this is kind of fun. This is so much better than talking about, who got fined, the refs, missed that call. It changed the outcome of the game.
Oh, no, we can get to that. We can get to the stuff that we don't like.
Do you remember that, Commish?
Yeah. Hey, the one
remember
thing.
that time in Calgary in 08 and the media was ripping you for the negotiations on labor? No, what are you talking about? Hang on, let me just take some of this.
We haven't even tasted any of this yet.
Okay. Let's try the latest. So this is
I've not had that yet, by the way.
Okay, now it's not chilled, but I think you'll like it still. Okay, this is our our
Russell, can't you get ice or chilled glasses? What's the matter?
Do we have any ice here?
Why can't you do anything right?
And very, very proud of this one. It's a little more sweetness than the original one off the top.
Throw
But
a young
you'll
Russell there.
You'll see the coriander cuts it and creates a real. I actually think right now, this one is the one that has real long legs on this, meaning it's going to do.
Oh God, that's good.
Yeah,
that is good because a lot of cranberry ones are either too tart or too sweet, and I can't. Like when Mike's Hard Lemonade came out with their cranberry one, I couldn't get it down. This is easy. Yeah, it's very nice, very subtle. Oh man,
nice.
That's the cousin of the original Gin Smash, basically.
That is really super.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah,
that's nice. And this is very good. Yeah, again, add a little bit of gin to it over ice. Add a lime or a lemon, and you're ready for the.
So basically, you're just a boozer now.
Yes, I am.
We can come up with a lot of names. Marketing.
You can be a regular guy.
Yes, we are doing a show.
I should be a sidekick. I can be with a sidekick. Hey,
there you go.
This would be like Howard Stern. I'll be, slurring.
Okay, so Gin Smash. This is the godfather of it all.
Yes, this is really the mothership.
Yes,
this is the one that I think the three partners, dearest to our hearts. But again, do you want to try this one?
Let's do
too?
this one. Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
It doesn't matter to me. I'm not proud.
Okay.
But
now this one.
This feels like a CFL party, by the way.
Yes, this does.
Like people said, what is the difference between the Super Bowl and the Grey Cup? I said, the Grey Cup. I said the Super Bowl is very corporate, a lot of glitz, a lot of chrome, a lot of glass. Yep. The Grey Cup is a giant bush party, or whatever, you call it. That everybody's invited to,
no matter
and
where you live.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what team you're supporting. The guys from Baltimore still show up.
True.
Those guys that call themselves, I think it's the Halifax. The Schooners? The Schooners?
We actually had Larry Smith on about 2 weeks ago to talk about
Larry, how was the senator?
Very good.
Yeah.
Senator Smith, exactly.
You got a good new title. Right.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you can put down the bottle for a couple of minutes, maybe you can do something like that.
Okay,
so this is the original lemon, lime, mint, and tangerine. A little bit more tartness to it. And that's why it really took off, because it created a new sort of category of sort of craft cocktail in a can.
And the mint was very, very different. I mean, it's prevalent. It's not overwhelming, but it's definitely one of the taste profiles of this.
So we get that too, where some people like, okay, gin, my college days, can't drink it.
Right.
But some people are like, oh, I don't like mint as much. So that's why with the cranberry, we got rid of the mint, but stuck with the citrus, so with the lemon and the lime, though.
Oh no, it was excellent. But this,
It's funny
What time is it?
It's funny.
yeah,
What are we doing?
yeah, it doesn't
1
matter.
o'clock in the
Welcome to the
afternoon.
show.
In St. John's, in Newfoundland.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you say that because I have a lot of people, a lot of friends who will sit there and say, the smell of gin makes me kind of queasy, and I can't really. And I'm not saying I'm in that boat, but I'm smelling it. I'm okay with everything. In
Yeah.
there. It's
Yeah, the gin gives a nice flavor. And you'll see when we try the vodka, too. Like, people said we need the vodka. We want to do another one that sort of had the same citrus, lemon, lime, mint profile, but we knew Radlers were big. It's not rocket scientists.
Right.
Everyone's coming up with trying to think, okay, what's the new unique thing? When we thought about the cranberry, we were like, a lot of our friends, a lot of people drink, vodka cranberry, vodka cranberry soda.
Of course.
Let's just put gin in it, and that's why we came up with that.
But it's also too, coming up with a different angle on maybe something that's been around for a while. Because generally, I'll be honest, if I see something that has cranberry in it, I'm passing. It's just not for me. Just because I have not enjoyed any of the product that's currently out there, but. Tasting that today, I can tell you what's being drank by the old Richards pool.
Good,
and it's going to be that one.
very good, very good.
All right, so this is our. You can pour this in a similar glass if you want. This is our vodka smash. Again, lemon, lime, mint, and grapefruit. And this one has.
Look at me, just I'll have another one. Hey, boozy. This is not the show to be starting us off at like.
This is 5%. Remember, we're only doing little bits. So
here's what we're gonna do while we're drinking here. In Russia, and you talking about marketing. Boy, they certainly have some different ways of.
This guy's been to Russia,
of
Siberia.
okay.
Many
I was
times.
going to say.
So I believe this is apartments. They have come up with a way, I guess, in real estate to sell apartments in a way that I've never quite seen before. I think it's probably fairly effective. You tell me. So if the three of us here who are now downing alcohol at 10:30 in the morning, if we're looking for an apartment, would we be interested in this one? So that's featuring the windows
Тимон?
and
Тимон,
the
кто пришел?
hardwood floors, obviously,
Встречай.
Собака is
and the
Привет.
dog.
Заходи.
look at this.
Тимон, так ты встречай, барышня-то пришла. Ты чай налей, что ли, ботинки сними, ну там, не знаю.
Very
Я вот,
interesting.
как говорю, не очень люблю общаться, поэтому Настя мне
man.
будет
That's-
помогать, показывать вам квартиру. Она здесь
So,
первая.
Mark, would you be
Maybe they need a chairman for that company. I've been to Russia many a time, and drinking actually, and then back to drinking. Samagon. Samagon is moonshine.
see, I never had that one.
If you guys remember, in 1990, I led an expedition right out of university to Russia in the high Arctic. I spent 6 weeks in Siberia.
You did what?
Yeah, it was
Because you were working at the Toronto Zoo.
So I
right?
remember I was a zookeeper in high
Yes.
school. I went to university in the States, and
What school are you in the States?
I
can't
went to
remember.
Northwestern.
Oh, that's right, Northwestern. Okay.
Yeah, they're a good football team now. You know,
Yeah.
not when I was there.
No,
Yeah,
they've
their
had
best
some.
year.
They've had
their
some
be-
lean years. Yes.
Their best year I think was 4-7 when I was there, and like we tore down the goalpost. But I saw this film. This was right when my dad was doing work in Russia. I saw this film about 9 Soviets and 4 Canadians that trekked across the North Pole, and I'm like, wow, I'd love to do that. I was interviewing for jobs my third year of university, and then going into fourth, and I was going to get this job at an advertising agency, and I said, I saw this film about these Soviets and Canadians that trekked across the North Pole. I'd love to kind of do this with students. And the guy said, I'm going to hire you, but go do this. So I came back to Canada after university, set up this charity called Youth Challenge International that's still around today, and it sends students on science and service expeditions around the world. The first one we did was in Russia.
Wow.
So it was an amazing experience, and that is how I got into sports, because one of the guys that I got to sponsor, so I had 30 students on the expedition, and each student had to raise $6,000 at the time, and I got a family friend from LA to sponsor one that gave $3,000 to one of the students. When we were in Russia, he was a big agent out in L.A., sports agent. He became the deputy commissioner of Major League Baseball, Steve Greenberg. You know, remember Hank Greenberg?
Yes.
Yeah. So he was working for Faye Vincent, and I got back from Russia in the high Arctic. You know, after doing this amazing experience, learning about leadership, we had it filmed on Much Music. We did a documentary, and Steve hired me to go work at Major League Baseball. So that's how my career started, because of Russia. And so there's the link into the ad.
Let me rewind that a little bit. Your time at the Toronto Zoo, I know it was high schoolish, but were you just doing that as a part-time job, or was that something you actually thought, no, this could be something I am doing the rest of my career? Like,
so I have a real passion for wildlife. I
Yeah.
just, I see a bird. Well, maybe not as much, not really an ornithologist, but I just love wildlife, animals. And so when I was in high school, summer job, I got it at the zoo. And then sort of the Russian opportunity, when I thought about going to the Arctic. And then, I about 17 years ago, I was about to get married, called the wedding off 6 weeks beforehand, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? I better leave town. I went to, this is well before the CFL, maybe 18 years ago. I went to Sumatra, to Indonesia, to volunteer for a month with a scientist to study wild orangutans, and that was an amazing experience. So I keep on doing this. I was on the board of the World Wildlife Fund. About 10 days ago, I just got back with my daughter Parker, who's 12. We did a 6-day wild rafting trip in Idaho, whitewater rafting.
Oh, very nice.
Totally disconnected. It was 4 dads, 8 kids, and it was an amazing experience in the Middle Fork of the Salmon River. And it's one of the most remote parts of the 48 contiguous states, and it was amazing. So I just love. It's in my genes.
Sure.
Yeah, unless you go to Boise State.
Yeah, right.
You're flying over Idaho. You're
Yes.
driving through Idaho.
Yep.
I mean, people don't realize, just sort of what the terrain actually is, and how
we landed in Boise and we drove up to Stanley, which is at 6,000 feet, and then we started down from there for 6 days. It was amazing.
So your total career path could have went in an exact opposite direction.
Yeah,
If you never caught onto the sports
so it's really
bug,
really interesting. When my daughter now is 12 and she is okay, Daddy. Well, if you didn't do sports at the time, or if you weren't now a bootlegger, what would you have done? Like, what would have been your ideal thing?
Yeah.
And I say, I probably would have been a wildlife guide in Africa.
Yeah.
So for my 50th birthday, my daughter, my wife Suzanne, and I, we went to Africa for 3 weeks and saw the migration in Tanzania in the Serengeti. So I have that bug. I have that bug.
See, so when you meet your wife,
yes,
and you start telling her these
stories,
adventures, yes,
they're real. They're real. I swear.
Because if I'm her, I'm going, okay, all right, buddy, sure.
Well, I'll tell you what worked. And it comes.
And your dad does what?
Yeah.
Oh, McDonald's. Oh, yeah. Of course he does.
It comes back. I tell you what works, and this was the business I should have started. So I get back from Sumatra, and the scientific name for orangutan is Pongo pygmaeus lba. That's a Latin name for it. So I get a golden retriever, and I name him Pongo. He's about 3 months old. I'm living in New York at the time, and I go out to Montauk, out to the Hamptons, out there, and I'm at this bar with my puppy at my feet. And that's when I met Suzanne.
So you meet her in Montauk?
Yeah, just outside. It's called it was a little clam shack called Cyril's. It's no longer
the best wingman ever.
Yeah, and I had my puppy. She saw it at my feet.
Yeah.
Lights out, it worked. I guess I have an affinity to animals because it's helped me find Suzanne as well.
Well, we're also going to take a break here on ronmikeRichards.com. You're watching either on the website or the dedicated YouTube channel. Keep subscribing, as I see that you're doing. In Canada, I think it's interesting. You talk about the level of our athletes, and certainly what's being played in Canada at the collegiate level, just what we have produced overall, but also, of course, the number of Canadians that have gone south of the border in basketball. They're not only just making the NCAA teams, they are now starring on the NCAA teams, the biggest teams, and they are being drafted number 1 overall. They're winning MVPs in the NBA. It is remarkable what has happened with that sport. And when I take a look at the Duke experiment, they travel, they play Ryerson, the U of T, and they play McGill.
What was the score in McGill? It was yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was kind of a beatdown. But the reality is, looking at RJ Barrett and just the significance that he's going to play on this team with Zion Williamson. It is remarkable. So here is yesterday. It's a Duke. I mean, it's just, they didn't. I would have liked to have seen Carleton, by the way. Right. If they'd had Duke Carleton, that would have been interesting. But it really wasn't about that or how competitive the games were going to be. It really was taking a look at our Canadian star, and with Williamson, they were unbelievable this past weekend.
Driving into the lane, up and in to give the Blue Devils an early lead.
And they're getting this mostly young Duke team off balance.
Over the top, Barrett to Delorier. Barrett corner three, count it, and the lead grows to 5.
And you're kind of like, think of all the time that we waste in NCAA basketball getting everybody lined up for a first free throw. It doesn't really matter. Well, coming into this game, Cadogan was only 2 of 11 from 3.
No look feed, Barrett underneath, Javin Delorier, and another aspect.
People didn't realize about the passing ability he has.
6'7", he is very comfortable, in effect, playing the point and running the offense, which is what he's doing with this lineup out there right now. Shovel pass, Williamson to Barrett, and he lays it in.
We're going to see a lot of that this season.
That's a great question. How about
this? Ouch. Yeah.
Barrett connects with Zion Williamson again.
You might want to call a timeout there. I mean, that is just a
great experience for the Canadian universities, though, to have a team like that and a coach like that traveling through. And a lot of people don't know this, but it works well with both sides because Duke's actually allowed to get their team together if they play outside of the country. They can't do that inside the country because it's against NCAA regulations. But come to Canada, go to Europe, do whatever, no problem at all. So I hope something like this is something that happens a little more often.
So do I.
With different universities that travel through, because it only helps. And when you're displaying a guy like R.J. Barrett.
It is the amazing power of basketball. So on this flight back from Idaho, we went through Minneapolis, and there are all the young kids on the plane who were with us, eight kids. They range from 13 down to 10. On our flight from Minneapolis was Andrew Wiggins.
Wow.
And so they are freaking out.
No kidding.
Freaking out. They're like, waiting next to him. Like some of them had enough guts to go up and ask for his autograph. But, I mean, the boys were like little schoolgirls, and the little schoolgirls were just as amazed. They loved him. It was exciting.
Well, and again, I think it's also about a grassroots. What we do at those levels. That's why they had what was the big summit with hockey back when they figured that there was a disconnect on why we weren't doing the things we were doing.
Yeah, that was a while ago. That was 99, I believe.
Yeah,
1999.
so that's a long. But
Ken Dryden was leading that.
Exactly,
up too.
and so it was like this summit, this big meeting about what we did. But see, football in this country doesn't get that. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I'll be honest, the GTA is a very difficult football market, as you know. And I don't care what football we're talking, whether it's university, professional. People say, yeah, but if they had an NFL team, yeah, sure. I mean, because you're looking at the Cadillac or the Porsche of that thing. But are you really a football person? Which I get in this argument all the time, because it's not about fantasy. Mm-hmm. Fantasy is a game that you play that's attached to football, but you can play that kind of game on almost in any league. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about football conversations, the ones that I hear in Alberta, the ones that I hear in Saskatchewan, the ones that I hear in Manitoba, and certainly the ones you hear in Quebec, where the grassroots football, the Cégeps, minor football is just huge. And so therefore, when they start talking about the struggles in Toronto, that I think their biggest mountain to climb isn't so much about the smaller hardcore that will always buy an Argo ticket. They'll want to see Ricky Ray, if it's possible, go 18-0. But then there's that huge passerby crowd that may or may not be interested. And I think the difficulty isn't so much it's just anti-Argo or anti-CFL. I just think that football themselves isn't the first topic in this city.
Yeah, I think that's probably true in many ways, and it's interesting when I reflect on my time at the CFL, and our challenge has always been Toronto. Even when they are winning Grey Cups, and we saw putting them into BMO Field is it's not a guaranteed it's going to work. I mean, I think now that it's part of MLSE and they can take all the tentacles that MLSE have, they can turn that around. But you can even see now it's going to take time. You got 14,000 people in the stadium, but it really, I think, is a Toronto issue, because you go down the GO tracks to Hamilton and everyone talks about the Tiger Cats. You go to Ottawa, everyone is talking about the Red Black. So it's definitely not an Ontario issue. It really is sort of a downtown. I think it's a downtown issue because a lot of the fans that what I recall coming into Argos games were 905ers.
Totally, 100%, 100%. It's
and
accurate,
so I think they continue to have that challenge, and I also think the team has to be consistently win and create that buzz around it, but it's going to take time.
So what did you think of the Johnny Manziel thing? What did you make of it? And I'll just say where my statement was probably three years ago and change.
Mm-hmm.
That I thought, if I'm the Toronto Argonauts, bear in mind what the attitude was going to be, but that he would have been a good call for the Argos. But at that time, he was going through some real personal challenges, which made it very unattractive. But I think that from what I've seen of him, his understanding of knowing that the CFL is his challenge. It's not about getting out in the field and looking ahead to the NFL. He's got to be able to play here, and we still are unsure if that I see tremendous potential.
Right.
And I think his attitude, off field, he is taking his life seriously. So I'm cheering for him. I would like to see him do well. But what is your feeling on it?
No, I agree. So I think Randy, the commissioner, handled it well. He wanted to meet with him in advance. He has the ability to reject a contract. So I think the ability to sit down with him in advance and say, take some responsibility for your actions, I think is really important. But people asked me about it, and I said, the CFL is littered with superstars from south of the border who didn't make it up here, who think they can come up here and succeed. I remember having a conversation with Cam Wake, and talking to him after when he was with the Dolphins, and Stephen Ross, who's the owner of the Dolphins, and talking to his peers down at the NFL, and the NFL players know how tough it is to make it in the CFL. And I think it's a wait and see. We'll see how he does. There's think of who was it? Was it Locke or the Alouettes had, a Heisman Trophy winner quarterback. He was like third string after Calvillo, there's so many players who think they can do well here, and they can't because it's a tough, great game, and the quality competition is excellent.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Well, I think we're just about wrapping up here, Mike. So
I do.
This goes by way too fast.
Yes, because we also, as you can tell, really concentrating on marketing.
Yes,
here with the Georgian Bay Spirit Company. Sometimes you need a professional athlete to make things go. Maybe an endorsement. I know what you're thinking, Georgian Bay. This is a natural Richards. Richards and booze. Come on now. What about Ovechkin? Now, we see what he does over here in North America. But it's once again, if you remember the apartment ad, I think it's for Gillette. I can't tell. But it's Ovi, so it's got to be good, right?
Давайте я вам дам кое-что получше автографа. Пойдем со мной.
What is this?
Сейчас у меня получится. А что нужно делать? Только осторожно, тут скользко. Страшно. Так, не боимся. Мне нужно 3 добровольца. Желающие есть? Давай, заходи.
I have a feeling his condo looks like this on Friday nights. No, look at this. Now, this is tremendous marketing. Mark, I don't know if you can...
Yeah, I'm just learning.
Whoa, what's that? Something tells me it just doesn't quite fly the same way in North America.
You saw him after the celebration swimming in that pond, right? So I don't know how well he'd do out in Georgian Bay with little waves. So maybe I do have my buddy Paul Coffey we just bought a cottage up in Lake Rosso, and we're near a bunch of hockey players. Lindros is right there.
Yeah.
And Coffey are there, so I'm slowly nursing them into our beverages.
Well, what about Kurt and Goldie up there?
Yeah, I haven't met them yet. I don't know if they're still up there, but
I thought they were. Yeah. So life for Mark Cohon continues to be interesting and fun. And here's the one reason, and I've always obviously thought very highly of you, and I think that it also shows, regardless of where someone has come from. So people would say, well, yeah, sure, of course he's successful. He came from a successful family. Not always true. Not true. And they certainly don't start working in zoos. They don't take kids over to Siberia. They don't, they don't become presidents of leagues or marketing directors of alcohol companies. You are always finding ways to amuse yourself to a degree, to either to make yourself better or to make your family's life better. And I think the lesson is that you've done it in a way because you're well liked. You don't have to be the bastard guy climbing up and then going, "Oh my God, deal with Gohan, boy, brutal." I've never heard that. I've never heard that before, and I think that's why when you took over the CFL, you did it for all the right reasons, and because you loved the game, you loved the country. It's why you're staying in this country, because you have options elsewhere. So I think for you to join us here today, just a small show that we have right now, which is actually growing pretty big as we speak. But boy, it's been a real pleasure to see you again. I'm so glad to see you that you're doing
great.
well.
We're having fun. And what I will do, and this is not bribing you, I will leave this for you.
Oh, tremendous.
So enjoy it over time in moderation.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah,
All right, good seeing you guys.
Once again, that is Mark Cohan with us here today. Russell's just eyeing that booze.
Yeah, I know he is. We got to keep him down. Exactly.
Yeah.
Should remind everybody, possibly as early as tomorrow, Joe Montford will join us on the show. The Hamilton Ticats are putting his name and number in the Wall of Fame during their Thursday night game. So Montford will be part of the show, so stick around for that.
We will need a wider lens to get all of his bicep size in. I've never seen. He once told me, he said, "Did guys mention it?" He goes, "Yeah." They always come up and they're going, "You're not so big," which means, yes, you are.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us today. Remember to subscribe to rawmikeriches.com, either the website and, of course, our dedicated YouTube channel, which is getting bigger, and we appreciate that. So have yourself a great day. See you tomorrow.